specifically on that issue of the runway, though, let's speak with Paul Beckford, Policy Director at No Third Runway. Good afternoon to you, Paul.
Afternoon, Ian. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. I'm going to take a wild guess here that based on the name of your organisation, you are probably against a third runway.
Yeah, well, like Ron said, it does what it says on the tin.
Absolutely right. So this announcement today would not have been good news.
No, very disappointing day. But, let's put it into context. We've been campaigning actively since 2017. Many of our members and residents that we represent have been campaigning against the third runway since the early 2000s. So we're prepared for the fight. We're ready to go again. And, we knew this was going to come back at some point. Heathrow always wants to grow. That's in the nature of their business.
Yeah. What's wrong with a third runway, though? More commerce, more business. It's what planes do. They need somewhere to land. And surely you get a bigger airport, you get more business coming in, more tourists coming in. What's not to like?
Well, there's a number of issues. On the tourist point, we're actually in a tourism deficit. We export about £43 billion every year to the rest of the world that we could be spending domestically. That's facilitated through aviation and other forms of transport and tourism. On the third runway itself, the economic case has always been fairly weak. And in fact, I think some of the announcements today, there's a new analysis done, which we've yet to see, but they've revised down job figures already. The economic benefit over a 60-year period was around 60 billion in the initial assessment, so $1 billion a year. It's about the price of a cup of tea for everybody in the country, so it's not that big an uplift. And actually, when you look in the government's own analysis, they revised that down when you look at the net present value, so the cost and the benefits together. And at best, it may produce a 3 billion uplift, and at worst, maybe a 2 billion cost to the economy. Then you add on the top of that the fact that 75% of the passengers using any third runway would be what's international transfer passengers. And the DfT's own guidance say you shouldn't be using any benefit from those passengers. They don't contribute anything to the economy because they simply switch planes at Heathrow. So adding extra capacity to what's already the most connected airport in the world gives you very marginal return, hardly any value. You'd be far better off trying to direct aviation traffic to the unused capacity at regional airports around the country.
Is your contention an environmental argument, or is it because you happen to have a house near a runway?
No, I personally don't live under the flight path, so I'm here speaking on behalf of those that do.
Yep.
But yeah, environmental impact's huge. You've got, if you've built a third runway, you're talking about around 2 million more people on top of the 700,000 already impacted by aircraft noise being exposed to levels of noise pollution which cause negative health impacts. In terms of air pollution, Heathrow is already a hotspot for nitrogen dioxide, as well as ultrafine particulates you find as far away as central London caused by aircraft. So there's huge health impacts there, and we're only just really beginning to understand in terms of the academic research around how badly this impacts people's health. And on carbon, the big one is 9 megatons additional carbon from a third runway every year. That'll take aviation up to the 2050 mark, where they will be a quarter of all our aviation emissions. Now, I know some people say it's a global industry, we have to take global action. I agree with that. We should be reducing it. And my problem is around the investment in sustainable aviation fuels or hydrogen or electric flights. We are not seeing the pace of progress by industry that's required for them to decarbonise in time. And what that means is there's going to be extra pressure on other sectors of the economy to decarbonise faster and more quickly, or maybe even have to place restrictions. So there needs to be an integrated strategy here, and at the moment we're not hearing that from government.
Remember a few years ago, Boris Johnson, who was also against the third runway, he's not normally a man I would cite when it comes to a reference of trust, but he came up with this idea of an island, didn't he, off the coast that could be, be an airport with some runways and stuff. And it kind of got laughed at because they called it Boris's Island, as if it was some kind of funny joke. But there was actually a very serious argument there, and some still advocate that's probably the ideal thing. An island that's away from the shore might not be the best of all plans, but many said that would be better than a third runway at Heathrow.
Something the Airports Commission looked at several years ago when they went through this process comparing where to put extra capacity. The French moved Charles de Gaulle, I believe, and they were moving on airports. Hong Kong moved their airport. So these things are possible. And if you were starting from scratch, you wouldn't put a Heathrow airport in the location that it is. It's around the most congested and most populated area of the country. So maybe you would start and put a 4-runway hub somewhere else. Ideally, maybe connected to a high-speed rail network so people can get there without having to jump in their cars. But yeah, the Boris Island idea, as you cite, has been long dead and isn't floated at the moment. Obviously, the impact of that, you would have to, government would have to compulsorily purchase Heathrow, and all those businesses that in the Thames Valley and that are located precisely to be next to Heathrow would then have to move as well. So I think there's huge logistical problems, not at least the cost to a deal like that.
Well, it takes forever to fill a pothole. God knows how much it takes to fill the sea to make an island. We would watch with interest. Paul, thank you very much. Paul Beckford, he's Policy Director at No Third Runway. Over to you.